Today's guest on the Winning Teams podcast is Beatrice Adenodi. Now, Beatrice is a very interesting lady with a very interesting background, and she'll share that with you. But she's got a lovely mix of kind of commercial business experience, artistic experience, and kind of philosopher in terms of the way she looks at life. But she has her own consulting company where she works very closely, very strong marketing background, as I said. But her book that she has written and that we talk about is around mindless behaviors and actually understanding the behaviors that get in our way of us achieving what we are got the potential to realize. And she's really interesting. She really takes a kind of slightly different look at that. She talks about kind of recognizing the mindless behaviors, recognizing the things that hold us back, how we can actually turn them around, and the awareness in order to actually to have the awareness in order to recognize the issue and also to deal with it and to kind of turn that around into a new way of working and a new way of being. She also talks about, she refers to as the invisible book, which is really interesting. And we talk about that. And I'm not going to spoil it by explaining what it means by that, but you really have to listen to that because I think it's a really interesting take that she has got on that. And really all the time talking about the benefits of confronting the behaviors and the unconscious biases and everything else that gets in our way and doing something proactively and positively about them. So Beatrice is a really interesting lady, as I said, and well worth listening to. So I hope you sit back and enjoy the conversation with Beatrice Adenodi. Beatrice, you're very welcome here. Thank you for joining us on the Winning Teams podcast. I mean, you are a marketing guru. You are an awareness advocate. You're founder of Mirror Inc., a full-service consulting firm in Minneapolis. And you're also the author of Mindless Behaviors, Breaking Through Unseen Barriers, which is really what I want to focus on in the interview today. But maybe just for context, maybe just give a little bit of background about yourself so that the audience just get to know you a little bit and your story and where you've come from.
Oh, thank you for having me, first of all, John. I really appreciate it. Well, I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, down in the Bayou.
Lovely.
Now I live in Minneapolis. And I came here quite a few years ago. And I was telling you before, I came before, it was like night and day. So New Orleans is kind of like the Big Easy, and it's snowing. It doesn't snow there. It's like hot and humid. And fast forward a few years later, I ended up in Minnesota because of my family. And it's a little bit more cold here. So yeah, it's a little... So my journey was I finished my college here and finished in public relations. Started as a PR major, and I actually been in events, experiential marketing for almost over 20 years now. And doing a lot of productions all over the world. And not only that, doing a lot of planning, and it brought me up to basically help small business and entrepreneurs get not only do their events, but even get their marketing and business together. So I started my journey just started with me just working events, and it just basically grew through the years. And in 2014, I switched to not only a consulting firm. That's when I started writing my book called Mindless Behaviors. And through that journey, I just started to see the patterns in people, and not only in marketing, but in my personal life. So a lot of my work was informed in what I've done in my career for so long, and the skills that I basically acquired through the years and the patterns that I've seen. So yeah.
Okay, so if you try, I mean, it's interesting if you look at that, the marketing background, doing the events, building on that, then going into consultancy, and then to write a book, what you call about mindless behaviors, and your vision, if I understand it correctly, is to create generations of hopeful people. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So talk about Mindless Behaviors. What is the book about? Why did you write that? And what was your whole purpose in writing that book?
Yeah, so Mindless Behaviors is is a book about unconscious biases that we do on a regular basis that keeps us stuck. So in my book, I showcase 7 different stories that are generally Pacific behaviors that are kind of universal that I showcase, and each story it unravels like what the situation is and like the different characters in the book and how they got themselves in a little bit of a pickle, and also how they overcome them and why. And the reason why I wrote it is because in my whole sphere of my life, I've seen a lot of patterns in people. And like being in marketing, you have to create behaviors. And a lot of people have a lot of the same problems over and over and over again, but it's been a billion different ways. So I feel like this book for me is a message to deliver a message that, hey, you know what, if we step back and look at our lives from another perspective, we can break the cycle of reactivity, as long as in those mindless behaviors that keeps us stuck, as long as we become aware.
So you talk about kind of clearing the smoke from our mirrors, which I love the imagery of that. So firstly, how do I know that the smoke is there, and how do I actually know that I am embracing mindless behaviors that are getting in the way of me fulfilling myself?
So those smoky mirrors are the chaos that we engage with in our lives, right? So everybody has an issue. They have like this gnat in there. They have this gnat that they can't get away, these challenging situations, right? But through these different challenges, you learn something different from it. And what's challenging is that if you're not really stepping back and reflecting on the challenges, you tend to do them over and over and over and over again. So
But is
how we
that not the pattern of a lot of people's lives, isn't it? I mean, that is the pattern, that they keep on making the same mistake. So
yeah.
what becomes the catalyst for you to stop? Because I understand, okay, you need to stop to actually reflect and do that. But what becomes the catalyst to get you to stop, to kind of say, hey, I've got to stop making these same mistakes time and time again?
So that's what I was going to get to.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So the catalyst of making it stop is being in the midst of chaos, like literally identifying a problem and challenging your life. Everybody have an issue, right? So like, let's say you have this annoying coworker in your office, and like you really can't stand them, and you don't get along and you butt heads and you don't know the reason why, right? Every time something happened, you guys are in this situation. So it got to the so bad that you don't want to go to work and it's toxic, right? But what if you're the one causing the chaos? So like if you're the one basically bringing the toxicity to the work environment because of something that personally happened to you, right? So some of the time, the catalyst could be that coworker that is like that annoying coworker that you're going head to head with, and it literally gets you to your point of your knees and like breaking down like, wow, what's going on? I can't take this anymore. And sometimes when you get to that point of chaos, you basically you really want to start and step back and reflect. I don't think that somebody with a happy life will basically stop doing what they normally do. It's when we're in pure chaos is when we really get to that, really look at ourselves like, okay, what's really happening? This is not working for me, and start asking ourselves these questions. And that's when we start to clear the smoke out of our mirrors.
Okay. So so whatever that catalyst is that you kind of think, that it's got too hot in the kitchen or whatever it might be, whatever metaphor you want to use. But I mean, I don't want to continue doing this. And then I say, okay, but I need to stop. intellectually knowing that I need to stop is one part of it. Stopping is another, is a different part of it, and continuing to stop. So how do you sustain it? Because the mindless behavior is a behavior that you have developed and have grown over presumably quite a long period of time. So this is kind of fairly deeply embedded in you in terms of how you behave. So undoing that and redoing new behavior, how do you create the new behavior, and how do you make sure that you're actually getting that new behavior to stick with you?
Mhm. So I'm gonna break it to make it really hit home for your viewers. I'm gonna break it to a simple level, right? Most people are not aware that we abandon, we don't acknowledge each other on a regular basis, right? So for instance, I have a friend that basically texts me, don't do it anymore, but text me on a regular, text me and just ask for their request without saying, hey, how you doing, right? And I basically had a conversation and said, hey, you know what? You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know my condition. You don't know my experience. You don't know what's happening to me at this moment. I would like for you to just acknowledge me and like, hey, how you doing? Like literally communicate and engage with me. And the response back was, I didn't even know I was doing it. So it seeped into his awareness that he was actually doing that act. And so to know something is different from understanding something or understanding, however we want to say it. Most people know that they're doing the behavior, but a lot of people don't understand how deep the behavior gone, to the point that if you start to understand and become aware, that's when it shifts. Because we don't want to hurt somebody in that aspect. And neither we don't even want to hurt ourselves, because hurt, that's a form of pain. So once we become really aware of it and understand that the causes, the effects that it happens from doing this behavior, that's when you start to shift. And it does shift forever once you understand how deep the seed goes. So I feel like awareness is thrown everywhere, but awareness is a form of understanding and understanding your condition. Okay. So it's the true awareness of it.
You mentioned, so you think the awareness is what sustains you to actually stay in that new behavior. Okay. You mentioned that I think you're saying in the book that we all wear masks to hide from something. Mm-hmm. I know this is a generalized question, but firstly, what are we hiding it from? What are we hiding from? And secondly, how do we take that mask off?
So the mask that we're hiding, the mask that we're hiding is like who we are. So like most people, we're in this workplace because we have this persona that we have to like upkeep, right? And sometimes we do just have to have this mask on. And the thing is that like, I'm not in the book, I'm not saying the mask is bad or good. The mask could work to your advantage as long as you're aware of it. But most people are not aware of it, so it wears them down. Mm-hmm. So it's utilizing, being able to understand yourself better and utilize it to your advantage. So that mask is, people hide behind it, but like most of the time we want to be who we are. And that discovery is basically going down that journey of going into doing the internal work on ourselves and showing up.
And you talk about in the invisible book. Yes. Explain the invisible book to me.
So the invisible book, I talk about it a lot. It's the book that we were handed when we were born. So I always say that, like, when we were born, we're like, okay, so you were born into this family and have all these traditions, all of these rules and regulations. But at the same time, people say you can create the life you want. as long as it fits in these terms, right? So if it doesn't fit in these terms, it's a black sheep. So you're born, you go into school, you have all these you have all these family values. Then you even on top of that, you have this belief. So whatever it is, it could be Catholic, it could be pagan, it could be any type of religion. Now you adapt a religion, and then you go to school, you go all the way through school, and then you got to get this job. God forbid if you don't get married after a certain time. It's like on your it's like the house landed on your head. Okay. So now you have, and then like everybody wants to retire at the age of retirement is like 65. So like now we're waiting for Godot to take us away. So you go through these phases of life, and then you get to the end of it, and then you're like, I can retire now, right? Why can't I retire at 35? Why can't I retire at 40? You know, so like, or why do I want to be a doctor? I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be an artist. I want to dance for a living. Why can't I do that? No, it's not within this book. So everybody has an invisible book, how you should behave, how you should act within the system, the social norm. It's all within this book.
Okay. So where do you stand then on the kind of nature and nurture piece? I mean, if the book, the book seems, in what I'm hearing you say, the book seems it determines what I do and the choices that I make.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But where is so that would say, okay, so the environment and how I'm being brought up and how I'm nurtured, that determines how I turn out or what sort of person I become.
Yeah.
Where's choice in that?
Where
do I choose? Can I not choose to kind of break out from that book? Or can I not write my own chapters, to use the metaphor? Can I not write my own chapters in the book?
You can definitely write your own chapters in a book. But like, if you really think about how our culture and our system is set up, even our social environments, our norms, writing those chapters become challenging because it's unknown. It's not, it's not a level of basically embracing, that's individuality. That's you doing your own thing, right? So you're not following the trend, you're going against the trend. That's the reason why marketing is so brilliant, is because like it's so easy to get people on trends than to get people in like embracing their individuality and being a person, because we were trained based on trends, which is part of the invisible book.
But if you track back in your own life and look at it, I mean, if you look at the work you do, which is around the creativity, it's about having imagination, it's about painting pictures, it's about, kind of showing an idealized future, whatever way you want to put it, but it's creative, right? Was that in your book, or was that something that you developed as you journeyed through?
It's something that I developed.
Okay.
I didn't want to be part of. I identified the book. Believe me, what I'm telling you is exactly what I've lived through. He's in that invisible book. That's what got me to write that's what got me to say, like, there's a book out there, a book of principles and everything. And like, people are talking out both outside of their mouths, like, hey, you could do this, you can be everything, you're great, you can motivate, you can run this 100 miles an hour, yeah, by the way, you got to go through all these rules, and there's a billion rules in that book.
Okay. But have you not discarded that book, or at least discarded a big chunk of that book?
They always say, keep the baby, throw the bathwater away.
Yeah.
So the book has some babies in it, some diamonds in it. There's a lot of bathwater in the book.
I love that. So you've thrown the bathwater out, but you've kept the baby.
Yeah, I kept the babies. I kept the blueprint. I kept some of the bases that I understand for myself. and what level of, and it's almost having a high level of discernment in that way. Like, okay, so what is more logical, and what is more like, yeah, that's somebody's emotional petty thing going on that they trying to implement that is not going to happen, right? So it's almost like a level of like that discernment that you have to have, like, what could be applied to me to build who I am up, and what can be thrown away. I would tell you that 75% of the book can be thrown away. 25% makes sense. So I've always been that person that if it does make sense, then I'll adapt it. If it doesn't make sense, it's out the door.
Okay. Coming back to the mindless behaviors, okay, if I'm in a bad situation, if I get into a really bad situation, then I say, okay, well, what got me here? But if I'm just going along in my life with that, again, to use yours, you had the mask on, right? But life is just kind of meandering along in a normal way, no major highs, no major lows, kind of just kind of steady. How would I know that my mindless behaviors are holding me back to what I could achieve?
Well, if somebody's life is consistent, it's like this, people always find a problem. We always find a problem. There is no like person's life that is copacetic, right? They have this dream. There's something that's going to interrupt that pattern. You know why? Because it's time to like evolve. So if you're constantly on this smooth sailing, right? My life is getting better and stuff. We're very curious beings. We're social. We want to evolve, right? And the only way to evolve is to like have that interruption in that flow. And so like, okay, well, I see there's a little, that's a little disease going on. So I need to figure out why that disease is happening to me. And that's where we evolve. So we're never like supposed to stay like in this state for a long, extended long period of time. And what I realized is that like people are comfortable and they will sit at a place to the point that like, at one point that was their dream, but then they start to become the complacent. And so what happens when you sit in one place? Insects start to happen, like your vines start to grow everywhere. I'm talking metaphoric right now. Like everything is start to like, and then next thing you know, you start to rot. Your brain don't activate. And then people are like, you know what? I got to get out of this. So stagnation is another way of really realizing that interruption.
Beatrice, this is really, really interesting stuff. I mean, it's fascinating. I love your take on it, and I love the way you present it, and I love the way that you put the challenge out there to everybody, even in terms of the invisible book and how you actually approach that. Before we wrap up and we can share with people where people can get in touch with you, 2 questions I ask everybody. A book other than your own that's had an impact upon you. What's the book and what was the impact?
Oh, the book that I recently read in the last few months is called The Instant Millionaire. And it's by Mark Fisher.
Yes.
What made it, when I read it, was just the way he described it was so simple. And like he was talking about people, and he was speaking a language that I understood. Like the reason why people don't get to their potential is because they don't believe in their potential. And one thing that he said in the book is that if you're not doing what you love, you belong to the living dead. And I'm just like, whoa, I always talk about zombies, and it's just like how that hit home, right? And like really looking at our lives, are we at where we want to be? And if so, what is stopping us from getting there, right? And breaking our own ceiling. We're always competing with people. We're always competing, but what can we compete with ourselves? and hid it. And so it's the irony of it that was really, really captivating in that book.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I have come across it. I haven't read it, but I have come across the book because it certainly has resonated with me. But you've made it sound interesting. Second question is daily rituals. If you have them, what are they, and how do they support you?
So one of the things is I'm a meditator, so I meditate and I do a lot of progressive loops. So like qigong, or like moving my body in ways that are kind of like that, like center my energy. So in the morning, it's either I'm meditating, I'm doing stretch exercises, or I'm like doing progressive loops. So it grounds me and it puts me in a state of flow.
Lovely. I must say that's interesting. And do you do that with ropes? Is that how you do the loops, or is it without ropes?
It's not, it's with the hands.
With the hands, just with the hands.
It's all body movement. It's all
right. Okay. Fantastic. Beatrice, where can people get in touch with you? We'll put everything in the notes, but if they're listening now, where can they reach out and get in touch with you and get your book?
Yeah, so you can go to mirroring360.com. That's where you can schedule appointments, talk to me, and you can get my book from the website, but you can go to mindless-behaviors.com and you can buy the book from there. It's on
Brilliant.
Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and even in my store.
Great. That is fantastic. Beatrice, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. I've loved the conversation. I love your take in it. And it's just been great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Pleasure.